Welcome to the Womanist Salon. Hey girl, come on in. Take a seat. A chair is waiting just for you. If you are new or you've been rocking with us since our grand opening, you've come to the right place. The Womanist Salon podcast is an intergenerational, woke womanist beauty shop, that is, talk that integrates the popular, the political, the practical, and the prophetic. Our podcast plays up the hair salon as a social, sacred, yet secular point of departure for exploring Black women's culture in the context of authentic sisterhood. Welcome to the Womanist Salon Live. I'm Reverend Melanie, the HDIT, aka the hair doc in training. I'm joined in the salon with none other than the hair docs themselves. What's up, everybody?
Hey.
Hey.
So this is our first Womanist Salon Live podcast. Hopefully you've already been following us on Spotify and Apple and all of your favorite major platforms. But today we've curated and cooked up something extra special just for you. As our final appointment of the year, we've designed this night to bring in one of our salon favorites, the Professor Crunk, who has brought to us the works that continue to come up in the salon time after time. We brought our salon favorite, none other than Dr. Brittany Cooper. Well, she needs no introduction. We're so happy to have the Associate Professor of Women's and Gender Studies and Africana Studies at Rutgers University in New Jersey. She's the co-editor of the Crunk Feminist Collection, the author of Beyond Respectability, and the author of most notably, the New York Times bestseller, Eloquent Rage, A Black Feminist Discovers Her Superpower. Welcome, Dr. Cooper.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be in the salon. Y'all can see this hair needs.
Listen, you specialize in dealing with the kinky, and we appreciate that you can always attend to all of our hair patterns.
So she belongs in my chair.
Some people get a little bit confused about the salon. How do you have professors who also do salons? And so just by way of introduction, Professor Crunk, I want you to know that this is part of our afterglow. You know that we master in taking care of hair maintenance, taking care of people's kitchens and their edges. But the salon is our sacred space where any Black girl or Black woman, if only for 1 to 2 to 3 hours or the whole afternoon, you can meet a stranger. You can be attended to by a specialist, and they can treat not only what's on your head, but they can help you work out some wrong thinking in a world where being Black and female is always a problem. So the salon is where we not only take care of one's outer beauty, but we take care of their inner beauty. And no one is more eloquent and elegant when it comes to that than you. So we're excited to have you here and also to have the OG's dear friend here as our very first guest on the live. So welcome.
Thank you.
Yes, I am delighted. I'm delighted to have Dr. Brittany. She is, I have admired her for quite a while. Love her book. I'm going to try to use the language in the salon since, when the OG walks in and all the young women are either doing the hair or getting their hair done, it's like, okay, she is really dope. Yes, she is dope. She is, let's see what's the other one. And I love Eloquent Rage, but I'm going to tell you, I'm sold on Beyond Respectability. Okay, so my age group, Beyond Respectability, these are the women that I've studied. These are the women you're talking about in that book that I absolutely love. But Eloquent Rage is dope. It is fire. It is, okay, I'm going to stop. Okay, it's cool. I think cool.
You know Dr. Cooper likes it because she's a Howard alum. So of course, I mean, what more would you expect than for her to be
We are not going to survive Howard. We are not going to survive Howard.
4 years, hopefully 8 years. Listen, I am all for Howard alums. I'm all for the AKAs. I wear red and crimson and cream, but I'll put on pink and green just because I'm happy to drip Trump. So
It's true. It's
So-
true. We are pretty
Okay, I will claim Howard as well. I have been speaking at Rankin Chapter for the last 20 some years.
that's right.
So I will claim Howard University. I have spoken at Rankin Chapter for the chapel for the last 20 some years. And Dr. Professor Crunk, I think that's where one of the first places you've heard me speak. Is that right?
That's right. I like to tell people you were the first woman I ever heard preach, and I heard you preach in Rankin Chapel. And so, yeah, that
Thank you.
I grew up in Louisiana in a conservative Baptist environment, and so I didn't hear women preachers before I came to college, and so I heard you preach, and I remember the sermon text because you were talking about Elizabeth and Mary, so it must have been during Advent season. So I have a very distinct memory of that.
Thank you.
And the irony, the supreme irony is I was just literally thinking about it because I am preaching at Rankin this month in a couple of weeks, which is crazy, which is super insane.
Sundays are for chapel. Yes.
That's right. Yes, chapel. So
Wow, that's great.
Look,
The circle.
Things have been full circle because today Renita preached about, since it's the first Sunday of Advent, preparing for
I listen because
expectation for the unexpected. And that's the first thing off the press, right? That wonderful word that speaks to the moment that we're in.
That's right.
Right? So everything
I
about
can't believe you all were listening today.
we were listening today.
We were.
We were listening. We were all on one accord.
That's right.
So listen,
Represented this year. 2020 has been about preparing for the unexpected.
Yeah.
absolutely. It looks like protocol has already been established. Let's jump into the
So
conversation.
happy.
I am a bona fide naturalista. When I'm not wearing protective styles, you can find me getting a good silk press to straighten out my natural kinks. If I'm honest, most times my press and curl is done right out my mama's kitchen because I'm still that girl who gets her hair done by her mama. But when I'm on the road, you can find me at a Tiffany Sheree's shop in Dallas or at a shop in Chicago, any of those places for them to perfect my silk press. There's nothing like a new press or being hot off the press because when you get a new do, honey, you feel like a new woman. So let's jump into the conversation because when I think of hot off the press, first thing that comes to mind for me is President Barack Obama's new book that is flying off the shelves. The name is Promised Land. Now, if I'm honest, I'm not too fond of the title, to be honest. I mean, it gives me all of this kind of simple religious rhetoric of a city upon a hill or the home of the brave, something that we think America should be, but has never lived up to. But the book is thick. The prose is quite beautiful. The storytelling is rich, but the challenges are clear. Dr. Cooper, what you thinking about this new text? Promised Land.
I haven't read it yet. I think we could have waited a bit. I need to let the Barack era breathe a bit longer. The sort of push to tell the story of that moment. I think it's a little premature. So I will read it at some point. And look, I'm a deep admirer of Barack Obama. I recognize that he's a gift. I think he came along at the divinely appointed time. And I also think that sometimes the ways that he engages Black folks give me cause for concern. I think we deserve better. And not better in terms of his excellence, but I think we deserve better in terms of the way he sees his relationship to us, right? That he's, And and because I have all these preaching friends, folks have already been talking to me about the way he sort of handles the Jeremiah Wright moment.
That's,
It,
that's the bald spot.
Problem. That's the problem. That's the problem.
it just it angers me. It angers me so deeply as someone who also first heard of Jeremiah Wright at the Rankin Chapel, right? And has been a student of Dr. Wright's work for 20 years. I think that what I want him to do is reckon with what it means that the cost, like I need him to say the cost that I had to pay to become the first Black president was to disavow, the community that helped me to understand what it meant to be a Black man. Right. I mean, Jeremiah Wright's church raised Barack Obama. It gave him the cultural context to be able to connect his Blackness. He wasn't raised by Black folks. Right. And so the minute that you get to the party, then the thing you do is disavow the folks who took you in and made home for you. I just have a problem with that.
And what's really nerve-wracking for me with regards to that issue is in rewriting his story, there has been a way that they've been able to redeem George H. Bush, right? I mean, George W., right? So you have all of these beautiful pictures about how they were welcomed into the White House in the transition and how their children get along. And George W. is still up for the race of one of the nation's worst presidents in history. That's for trying to avenge his father's reputation at the cost of 2 wars. But still, all treatment, all care and attention by both Barack and Michelle Obama have been dealt tenderly, so to speak, with the Bushes. But to not attend to that with someone who baptized you, married you, baptized your children, gave you the name for your very first, one of your very first memoirs. So what is that about when it comes to Black people and relationships?
I mean, what do y'all think about that? That thing where we have no grace for our own people. I have to check this with myself sometimes, right? The way that we always want white people to do something redeemable. So we're looking for any evidence, right, that they are worthy of redemption, that they are not monsters. And with our own people, we act betrayed and wounded, and we just can never get over it. Like, what is that about?
I'm at a loss.
What do you think was it necessary, Professor Crunk? What do you think? Why would he and Michelle Obama? Why do you think that why do they need to even make these comments about Jeremiah Wright? I mean, this is not the most wanted man on the list, on the FBI list. I mean, so this is not a huge figure. This is not Farrakhan. I mean, he could have said Farrakhan and Wright are deep friends, but I mean, I just don't get why Jeremiah Wright even needs to be in the book, and certainly even in Michelle's book. We all supposing here, but what do you think is going on?
Yeah. Look, I think Barack needs to be right about this thing that he's so wrong about, and he just keeps on trying to shove it. He ain't right. There's just no way he's not right. The Jeremiah Wright was right, and the cost. Barack Obama did a thing that we still paying for. He went to Philadelphia in 2008 and he gave that speech and he said, basically, Jeremiah Wright is stuck in the 60s. And then he said, and he's not unlike the white folks who, are mad because of, their perception about quotas and that they've been left behind. And he allowed this false equivalency to go forward about race. And in this moment, looks like white people being like, well, ain't no difference between white supremacists and Black Lives Matter, right? There's no difference. Y'all got your guy for 8 years and now we wanted our guy for 8 years. They don't see no qualitative difference between a Barack and a Trump. And while that is not all on Barack's hands, he justified, legitimated this reasoning that said we can wipe away the history. So a white man's grievance is not the same as Jeremiah Wright's grievance, which is a grievance spoken on behalf of our people. And he created the context for white folks to engage in that kind of erasure on the left. And now is over here looking like well, why are things so bad? Because at the first moment, rather than him telling a different story, figuring out a story to help folks understand, he chose the most expedient story, which was he is stuck in the past. And then what he came to figure out in the presidency was that, America's still in that past too and trying to relive it, right? And so he doesn't know how to reckon with that. The other thing I think too, I mean, my more just homegirl read of it is Barack has serious daddy issues. Like he built a whole racial justice policy because he didn't have no daddy. And I was like, but you became the president. Like, was it really that bad? Did it really handicap you that much? You became the president and you didn't have no black daddy. And I almost feel like it's like I was talking to my pastor Leslie Callahan about this last week. Like it almost feels like he thinks of Jeremiah Wright as another daddy who betrayed him by not backing down, by saying the truth about race in America. And he won't grapple with his own daddy stuff, so then he just keeps forcing the rest of us to.
Ooh, girl, you sound just like you're in the salon right now, girl. Ooh, Lord have mercy. I am scratching your head right now. Listen, everybody has stopped washing hands. Everybody stop pressing because we all listening to Professor Quan. Go on, girl. Go on, girl.
Well, I'm from Chicago, so I grew up on Dr. Wright's sermons. And speaking of Howard, I went to undergrad with his grandson. So I mean, this is history. This is legacy here. But one of my problems here is President Obama has a view of America that and its ideals. He believes in America's ideals, but the everyday Black person knows that even if America got it right, it still would be bad for the rest of us. Mm-hmm. And that's something I think that the President Obama hasn't reckoned with. I mean, I cringed literally when I read the section that said Obama called Wright's sermons a little over the top or usually grounded in fact but bereft of context. Chimamanda Adichie, she said that basically, this book tells us about an America that has not changed or hasn't remains unchanged even after Obama's presidency. So my homegirl conversation would be keep Jeremiah Wright's name out y'all mouth. Like, why do we need to keep bringing it up? I mean, that's how I feel.
You're right about it.
I think it's exactly what Professor Plunk was saying. Sometimes when people have a problem, like growing up in the 70s when girls were intimidated with being within a predominantly white context, they would overpress their hair where it could not do anything. So it would be over straight to the point that you could see the scabs on their ears and the singe when they walked into the building. And it's that same smell. But what Obama is showing us with his memoir is like what Chinua Achebe says. If you don't like the story, you write your own. So now I want to get to some of the heat in the kitchen. If you don't like the story, so you'll write your own. Well, we understand that politics are going the right way now only because of Black women. So Stacey Abrams, we all love her. Many of us know her. She's been off the chain. So Professor Crump, I realize that you and Stacey Abrams have a lot in common besides just your politics and your brilliance. Both of you like stories, romance stories.
Yep.
She is a writer of romantic novels. And while the rest of us might dive in some ice cream or go YouTubing, after hours where we're in despair, you are said to pick up numerous romance novels. So why are Black women Black women of great intellect and politics, right? Taken to romantic novels. What does that say about our story, especially over against men who are more fantasy driven or even porn driven, so to speak? Tell us about this past time.
Oh my God, yes. I wish they would stop watching porn. They would be better lovers if they would stop watching porn. But that's the lecture that I give my intro. That's
another topic.
I mean, look, it's just a headline that I say in my intro to gender and race students, and then I keep it moving. But Black, it's powerful Black women who need who deserve to have love. And one of the things that, I have such deep grief over, and that I was trying to work through in Eloquent Rage was, I have so many, I roll with homegirls, and I have so many dope homegirls who are single, who've been single for a long time, for whom, who know how to be good partners, who've done their work, who, and love just has not shown up. And I choose to think of that as a structural problem as opposed to a problem of our character or our worthiness, which is what I grew up in churches hearing, that if I just kept working on myself, somebody would show up or whatever. And so for me, romance novels filled a lot of space when I didn't have nobody. That's what I read on Friday nights. It gave me the sense that there could be love. It allowed me to escape. So part of it was I grew up, my two aunties, my Aunt Colleen, my Aunt Pumpkin, read romance novels all of my childhood, and they would trade them back and forth at Christmas. When my auntie would come home, she lives in Dallas, Texas, and when she would come home from the big city to our small town, she would bring a bag of romance novels. And when she would pull up in the driveway, my other aunt would come out, and they would have a romance novel exchange. And so that's one of my earliest memories, just watching Black women readers, and then I just fell in love with the stories. By the time I was in my 20s, Harlequin at one point had a Black romance imprint. They've since dissolved it, but they did. And so look, it was like all the stuff that you wish, if you straight, that you wish a dude would say to you, and the sex scenes were hot. And so, it was great. And then and it also made me love Stacey Abrams, because when I found out, first of all, people sometimes, because they think all of us look alike. So I've literally had people roll up to me in the store and be like, "Do you know you look like Stacey Abrams?" And I'm like, "She's much taller. She's built different. She could be my cousin, but like, no." And so it's like she's like my older, doper alter ego, right? But when I found out she wrote romance novels, I was like, "Oh my God, we're like the same person." It was like a total fangirl thing. So I have several Selena Montgomery novels like downloaded and stuff. So yeah, I just think Black girls deserve fantasy. We deserve love, and deserve to live in those worlds where we have soft places to land. And it's such a thing that I just, that I care so much about. And it's also a thing that was like a challenge to my faith for a long time. Because I was like, "God, do you love Black girls?" Because Black girls love you. We show up for you. We do all the things. We run your institutions. We put up with raggedy people, both in our community and white folks. And we get undervalued. And then we come home and ain't nobody there for us so often. And we just deserve better. And so romance novels were a place where I felt like the Black women authors who write those stories understand that girl and try to take care of her. So
let me ask you, I want to pick up on something that you said for our audience who might not understand what, and it was also intriguing to me, this notion of Black women as loveless, as undeserving of love, the image of it. You said it's more structural than it is individual, that we have been raised to believe, that we have heard from our pulpit, that if you would just get better, if you would just be the Proverbs 31 woman, or if you would just be the virtuous woman, or if you would just whatever. Will you say a little bit more about the structure, how structurally we are kept out and left out, how Black women can be structurally left out of the love game? Just for the women who may not know that kind of language. Say a little bit more about that, if you will.
Yeah, we just keep thinking that it's, that we're not finding anybody because it's something wrong with us and we haven't done our work. But part of the thing we know about brothers is that if they're traditional and if they halfway decent, they typically want to be economically supported. And so they are chronically underemployed. We have lived through 35 years of the wealth gap widening. And part of what that means is that, our folks can't actually provide for families in the same way. Like brothers aren't entering the economic market in the same way. And so if they have any investment in those traditional notions of providership, and sisters also have those investments, then you have to do all of this work to renegotiate in the context of a relationship, like You got dope sisters with master's degrees and PhDs and all of this stuff. And brothers aren't getting degrees at the same rates, and they aren't employed in the market in the same rate, at the same rate. And so it creates class clashes in relationships, and it creates clashes about how do we show up to this thing with the baggage of what it means to be a Black couple or be in Black love. So that's some of it. I think we also have to talk about the prison industrial complex. Everybody wants to talk about that in terms of like all of the damage it did to brothers. And the thing that I think about that is it really did steal away like a whole generation of brothers that are like around my age, right? I mean, I'm coming of age right at the moment where Clinton is in office and is, sort of doing all of this federal policy that entrenches the problem of mass incarceration. Those are literally brothers my age, coming of age in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so you have all of this talent and just languishes behind bars. And then these brothers got to get out. They got to deal with that trauma. They got to figure out a way into the job market, all of those sorts of things. And so I'm saying, in Eloquent Rage, I looked at the numbers, right? Like, so for Black women, it's something like for every 100 eligible Black women, by these sort of sociological standards of eligibility, there's like 50 eligible brothers. For every other group, it's literally 100 to 100. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. And for us, it's not, not by any standards about like having jobs. The Pew Research, this is the thing that it says. And then it becomes hard because when you then say that to sisters, what they say is, but Jesus can fix it. And I'm like, yeah, Jesus can fix it if we can get a politician in place that's gonna have like release some student loan debt and ban the bots and create, what I mean, and like have a robust stimulus plan. There's structural things that you can actually do to support the building of Black families, which is why we got to start helping people to understand the way their politics is connected to their intimate life. Otherwise, you just have sisters continuing to think that everything is about us being raggedy or not all together. And I'm like, but there's plenty of white folks who are raggedy and they got people. Like, raggediness is not the marker of whether or not you are partner worthy. Now, I mean, you should do your work, but like, it literally is not that way for any other race of people. And so I care a lot about that. My other shout out on this though is, and when I was in my 20s, really struggling with this, living in Atlanta, which is a terrible place to live in your 20s if you're a single sister.
You can say that again.
It's really not great. You just be like, what am I? I'm like, yeah, dang, like, oh my goodness, right? But I read What Matters Most, 10 Lessons in Living Passionately from the Song of Solomon, which is one of my favorite. I mean, I love all of your books, but it was a book that was right on time because it helped me that was one of the first times that I saw a woman in the Bible who felt like me, who felt like she had concerns like I had. And it's a book I would tell sisters who are trying to think about how do I navigate that moment of being a passionate, engaged subject with goals and dreams, and an erotic life, but with no context to hold it. That's the book I would tell you to read. It'll help you so much. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I want to take a pivot because I heard us talk about lovelessness, but I want to talk about how Black women are often deemed difficult. So I have been keeping up with the Prince of Bel-Air reunion. And my real first question is, why are all these reboots? I mean, I don't understand. But nonetheless, I've been keeping up with the reunion. And one of the highlights from the Prince of Bel-Air reunion was the return of Aunt Viv, the dark-skinned Aunt Viv, also known as Janet Hubert. Now, she was deemed a difficult woman on the set as the oldest Black woman on the Prince of Bel-Air set, whereas 21-year-old Will, the superstar comedian at that time, was able to replace her quickly. And we saw the Red Talk table conversation, all of these other conversations about reconciliation and redemption for Black men. But I'm wondering about the reconciliation and redemption, dare I say reparation, for Black women who are called difficult.
That's good. What y'all think? I want some wisdom.
Well, I want to take the wisdom from your book. in an eloquent rage, you say, Black women take it upon ourselves to challenge stereotypes, to raise respectful children, to build homes, communities, and churches, despite our chronic condition of underemployment or being despised. We are masters of wresting sustenance from insufficiency. We combat structurally imposed trauma, just like Erica Badu demanded of both herself and us by taking responsibility for the weight we carry. Black women have no problem confronting their own issues. We confront our own issues. We repair other people's issues. But I think what Mel is saying here, even in this rebooting culture of the Prince of Bel-Air and this reunion ceremony, a man, a multimillionaire man,
21 years old,
the wounds of his boyhood and demanding of a woman that he displaced, that we can have this repair or this healing. Again, this kind of redoing the narrative. And throughout your work, you're always talking about three things: organizing politically, taking care of your female relationships, and having a grown woman's theology. So what do we do with the difficulty, not only in relationships like you were talking about earlier, but also in how do we wrest our identity for ourselves? What does friendship have to do with that? And what does confrontation have to do with that? And I think, the only way you can take care of a sin is calling it out. You can reconcile somebody is for there to be repentance, right? So I think that is the question. You talk about that a lot with girlfriends. But how do we do it in calling it out in society? Calling it out intracommunally with Black men, calling it out intracommunally within the Black church, but also just the narratives without having to take to a book written by somebody else based on fiction to be a surrogate for us.
Yeah.
But literally make it a reality.
I mean, look, y'all literally wrote the books on these subjects, right? Look, I'm a student of both of you, literally reading your books, Dr. Stacy, your books, Dr. Anita, in grad school for qualifying exams. So any thoughts that I have about this are rooted in learning from womanist theologians in particular. Look, part of it, one of the things I'm thinking about is it's also about Dr. Anita's sermon this morning. Joseph was a young man who had the courage and the character to recognize when he was in the presence of a woman who was powerful with a calling as big, if not bigger than his. Will Smith continues to show himself in his relationships with his wife and his relationships with other women to be deeply problematic. And here is my question. How do we talk about, this is the thing that floats underneath all the things we've talked about tonight, whether we're talking about Barack Obama not being able to deal with Jeremiah Wright because basically his feelings were hurt. And he don't know how to say, right? His feelings were hurt, right?
And in the house of a friend, as Sonia.
That's it. It literally underscores so much of the drama we deal with men in the public. It was funny because the Barack Obama thing happened at the same time as the Gucci and Jeezy verses happened. His book dropped, and I was like, y'all feelings hurt. You were friends and your friendship broke up and your feelings got hurt. And instead of y'all figuring it out, you killed somebody. And then, so you got men with hurt feelings on one hand. Then you have men in relationships with women who feel fragility about their inability to show up in these traditional manhood roles. And they just take that out on women over and over and over again, and often just date basic ass chicks just because it makes them feel like a man. And now you have, in this instance, right, a kid, who is smelling himself, literally, who is getting the first taste of what it means to be a patriarch because he's got money. And the way he chooses to become a man is to kill the career of a woman, of a Black woman, right? And so how do we as feminists and womanists have that conversation without being dogged by the claim that we hate brothers, right? Because that's why we really don't want to say the thing, because everybody thinks that that means you hate a black man. And my question is, it's like, I'm not saying I hate you. I'm asking why you hate me.
And we have to look at this culture, right? We have to look at whether it's Hollywood or whether it's politics. The public sphere has created, especially in this moment of quarantine, a versus culture or a reboot culture.
Yeah.
What are the implications of taking a 30-minute Prince of Bel-Air old show that nobody needs to see again on repeat, right? And making it into an hour-long drama? What would the Jeffersons look like if the Jeffersons went from being a 30-minute comedy to a 1-hour drama, right? It would be from pot shots and jokes to throwing blows, right?
Yeah.
So how do we just, I mean, this is the intellectual challenge for people to always see these patterns.
Yeah.
That are always choreographed, that curate our culture, where we're either versus or rebooting just to regenerate a white normative narrative where they make money off of auctioning off what is important and what really matters to us. And I think that has a lot to do with when you talk about we need to stop looking at rhetoric.
Right.
And we need to start dealing with what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah. And you know, and Reverend Melanie, that question about reboot culture is so interesting because I'm a quintessential 90s babe, like 90s teen, 90s kid. I'm gonna be 40 on Wednesday. So literally the 90s are yes. So the 90s are my childhood. And so I think a couple things about it. First of all, I think what you have is that all of us who were children and teens in the 90s now run studios. And what we want, we all relive in nostalgia, and we forcing everybody younger than us to relive it too, because we fully believe that the 90s was like the best Black decade ever, right? So I actually think that it's just that sort of thing, which I'm here for. I'm here for it as someone who's like, correct, we had great shows, great music, the last good decade of R&B. You know, we pioneered women in hip hop in a particular way. Like, so I'm here for the nostalgia of it all. But here's the thing that I think is structurally interesting about that, right? And morally interesting. Structurally, part of the reason we lost in 2016 is because we had a lot of new young voters who were disgusted with Black people about the choices they made in the 1990s. If you think about 2016, it was a referendum on the 90s, and Hillary Clinton sort of becomes the casualty of that referendum, which is super interesting, right? What you have is a 90s filled with bad male behavior. Joe Biden, sanctioning Clarence Thomas, making it onto the Supreme Court, authoring a crime bill, right? Bill Clinton basically, having sex with everybody moving. And his wife becomes the casualty of all of those dudes, right? Literally, Hillary Clinton bears the brunt of all that stuff, which is interesting to me only, it's like some part of me can never get over it, because as I think about how Joe Biden won all the places that she lost, I'm like, because we really think that Joe Biden, who's the reason that Clarence Thomas is on the court, deserves to be the president more than Hillary Clinton does.
Say it.
Right? Like, but also our sex, but all of that stuff. But isn't it interesting that we as a culture, Black culture, hip hop culture, we celebrate the ride or die chick. We celebrate the loyal chick. But Hillary Clinton is the quintessential ride or die chick. Straight up. Like,
straight up.
No matter what. I call them the Lucius and Cookie Lion of American politics, because even when they're being dysfunctional, they still ride for each other. And
we see that with the white women who still came out for Trump.
Exactly.
55%.
So they couldn't even see that she did the same thing they did, which is that she rolled for her dude. And so, so there's that. I think that structurally this decade, the last decade, has been a referendum on the 90s, and it's been a bunch of young folks born in the 90s who are mad about the things that happened in the 90s, which is annoying to me, because I'm like, I'm not over here trying to relitigate the 70s when my mama was a teenager, right? Because I don't have the context to understand it. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's interesting. But the moral thing, I think, is that there's something about that we have to have some grace around, though, which is that, but what you sow, you reap, right? And
Right.
so if it's true that we called the 90s the decade of the woman, the year of the woman, we said that we had all this racial progress, and then we ended up in this century with a whole mess. And now we don't know what to do with young people who are calling us to account for the things that we thought we had made progress on. And I think we have to figure out how to morally reckon with the fact that they're not wrong for saying, well, this actually was trash. What y'all did, what y'all thought, how y'all thought about it. Even if we can say, baby, we didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't have prison industrial complex was not a word that existed, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that there's a structural piece, a moral piece, and a nostalgia piece. And I think for whatever reason, we have to get the monkey of the 90s off our backs before we can move forward. And I hope that what we are doing now in 2020 is moving forward from 30 years ago.
Well, we definitely see Black women working as the help, right? Still working. So we're excited about Kamala. We're excited about Karen Jean-Pierre and Simone Sanders, and Representative Fudge, who might be appointed as well. But even now, Black women who saved the year 2020, so we might see another year coming and a new dawn, they are still being pushed back.
Yeah,
they're still at the crosshairs. People are still wondering if they're being vetted enough. What is that about? When you've organized everything, when you've cleaned up all of the mess, when you've done twice as much, and still you're being judged, still you're being over vetted, still everyone's depending on you, but nobody's riding for you.
Yeah. Ooh. What y'all think?
Well, let me piggyback on that a little bit. Then, I mean that we obviously got to get to Kamala, right? We got to get to Kamala, because I don't know if this is the redeeming moment with having Kamala and Simone, like Stacey mentioned so well. Let's kind of pivot there. Is that the pivot there? Let's pivot there and talk about it. I'm very interested in what you have to say about that whole notion of Kamala being Vice President Kamala Harris being now the Vice President, a Black woman. Have we been redeemed? Is she our sign of progress? Is she for us what Barack was? Certainly for brothers some years ago, 12 years ago. What do you think about the election here with Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris? I want to give her props.
That's right. So Madam VP, as a Howard alum, I'm very proud of her, and I certainly think
HU,
correct.
Oh,
The capstone, the hilltop. Okay, but look, I think that we cannot downplay what it means to that a sister is in the number 2 spot leading the nation.
That's unbelievable. Like,
who saw that coming, right? Like, as I was doing, this is the 100th anniversary of white women's suffrage this year, and I've been giving talks about that. And as I was doing that, I was researching, and I came across some sisters, group of Black women socialite sisters, all in one family in the 1870s in South Carolina, the Rollins sisters. Yes. And in 1870, Charlotte Rollin made this joke about how she should run. They were political power brokers at the time during Reconstruction. And she made this joke about how she would be a great candidate for the 1872 vice presidential slot, right? But she said it sort of flippantly and wryly. And it made me think about how it really took 150 years to get from a sister joking about being a VP to actually becoming one. And that history, I don't think we can diminish it. And I also think that Kamala has represented us well during the time she's had in Congress. I know that Black folks have issues with some of the things she did as the AG in California, and I think those are legitimate issues to have. One of the questions that I always have about women in positions of power, particularly the women who go first, and all of us, I think, in our lives, in our small ways and our large ways, are women who go first, or we have been reared by and mentored by women who went first. And the thing about women who go first is that they're a little rough. They're a little conservative. They're mavericks. They a little, like it's a thing because you. And how do we talk about the psychology of being the one who goes first? And then you got a bunch of left folks being like, she ain't. And I'm like, it wouldn't be no possibility for your radical politics without the sister who sort of goes in with the armor, can can prove that she can be in that room according to existing standards and also challenge, right? And so I try to keep that in mind when I think about the fact that Kamala used the formula that one would use to get to her position coming through at the time she came through. So just because, for the last 5 or 6 years, you got a bunch of young people in the streets being like, F the police and, and AGs are cops. Well, y'all, but they're out of context now, right? Because how would a Black woman prepare herself for a role like this, but doing a job like that? And so I think sometimes there's a little bit of intellectual dishonesty when folks want to celebrate her being first, but then want to have every kind of issue with what kind of hits and choices she had to make in order to be first, right? So that's my.
I love to tell the story of speaking somewhere once and calling it the great calling out the great Hall of Fame, and I started naming Mary McLeod Bethune, Anna Julia Cooper, blah blah blah. And this woman came up to me and says, "But you didn't know Mary McLeod Bethune. You don't know how mean she was." Now this woman was herself about 900 years old, and she was talking about Mary. But my point is, I always said, we would not like Nana Helen Burroughs. We would not have personally liked Harriet Tubman. Women who come first, you have to have a certain kind of personality, and to not only to be first, to rise to certain levels. You do have to have a certain armor. Which picks up on some of what we're talking about to this evening about being unconventional women. Talk about women who lead, women who are bossy, women who take charge, women who speak their mind, women who do not back down. They open the doors. And I always tell church women, you may not like feminists and womanists, but church women did not open the doors. Let me just say this. Those well-behaved church women do not open doors. Okay? Hellraisers open doors. People you otherwise will not like open doors. Go ahead. I think that this is important. And Professor Crunk, you're a hellraiser. I don't know. You got about 4 friends. I'm so glad to be one of them.
No, but I think to that point.
But it takes us to love a bit, right?
I don't think it's so much about being the first. I think those attributes that Black women have that people hate, we love them when men and white people have them.
That's right.
It's only problematized when they're the attributes of Black women. Yeah. The attributes in and of themselves are not the problem. Yeah. It's when Black women have them, when you're organized, when you're efficient, when you're intelligent, when you know how to be in charge, that you're either the bitch or the villain. Yeah. When you're white or male, you're a leader, you're a pioneer, you're a go-getter, you're a star, you're the change agent. So we're not supposed to have, there's a reason why we're celebrating 100 years and 150 years, and the sojourner truths of this nation still, right, had to be the very last in line to get a right.
Yeah.
And now, and so that's what is what's called in the Madam VP moment.
Yeah, look, people, me and my friend, my friends will always tell me, they'll say, well, B, nobody thinks you're nice. Everybody thinks you're so mean. They think you're abrasive. And I'm like, look, I'm nice to the people that I like, but I'm kind. I'm not nice, right?
No one asks, is a male scholar
is a male nice? But
no one asks, is an academic, a white academic kind?
Right.
You're supposed to be full bosom, warm hug.
No one needs
a fried chicken when you're a Black woman.
That's right. But I've had to make that an affirmative principle in my life. The idea that I can be kind, caring, loving concern and not have to kiki with you because I don't know you and I have boundaries and I keep my stuff close to my vest and I'm reserved. And people also be on BS a lot and I don't have the constitution for it because of who my mama is and who my grandmama is. And mostly, you know, my grandmama was the one, I like to tell people, my grandmama was the kind of Southern woman that kept a rifle in the door jamb. And I spent a lot of time with her. She raised me. And that's my rhetorical and moral sensibility. Don't mess with me because it's right here within arm's reach, right? And that means that sometimes folks don't know how to take you. And they also, and then they misread you, as being unkind or unconcerned. And I'm like, no, it's just about having boundaries and it's about being strong. And it's also, and here's the other thing for me. I also just need other people to do their work because I feel like I spend a lot of time reflecting, thinking, trying to keep people right, trying to be ethical, trying to, check my shit. And then you look at other folks and they out here raggedy, ain't done their work, and then they want you to make life easier for them. And baby, that's not what I'm here for. I did not come to make you comfortable. Nobody. And the only people that I'm invested in them and being a soft place to land at a certain level is sisters. Sisters can do a lot with me in ways that other people simply cannot do. But other than them, brothers, they can get all this smoke all the time. White folks can absolutely get it. And I know that that's off-putting to people, but it's the way it's got to be.
Well, my nana used to say, a person can think a lie just as quick as they tell one. I know you to be nice and kind. And that doesn't mean that you have to cook for me and I need to come in your house and you can do my work and make me feel good about myself when I've been low down. So it's just a stereotype.
Yeah.
It is a stereotype. Yeah, it is.
True.
Yeah.
Mel,
So it looks like we're coming up
Mel.
to
You're the youngest one.
Well, since I'm the youngest one, I agree. I mean, people don't like boundary women. And, Dr. Weems taught me either you're going to be a woman they love or a woman they hate, but choose one and be who you are. So those are the lessons that I've learned in the shop.
I'm going to talk about it.
But we look like we're heading to this next segment of tonight, which is client consultations. Anybody ready for a hot oil treatment? Listen, if you got questions for the hair docs, we're at the end of our time on tonight. But if you wanted to ask us some questions, the salon is open just for you. Drop them in the comments and we'll get to a few of these questions tonight. So we just came up out of Thanksgiving while we wait for questions. How did y'all celebrate this unusual holiday?
It was a great time. So we had one of the best cooks in my family, my Aunt Lorraine, came and just took care of everything with her COVID test negative results in hand. So she knew that I was trying to complete a couple of book projects. She came in, she laid it down. She's like, I'm cooking enough and I'm putting it in the freezer from here until I come back for Christmas. So you don't even have to think about what to do. So she brought heaven down to earth. So I was excited.
I fell in love with gumbo for Thanksgiving many years ago. I used to eat every Thanksgiving with a woman from New Orleans who was living in Atlanta, and I know you, Professor Crocker, you're from Louisiana, if I'm not mistaken. So gumbo has now become a tradition for me on Thanksgiving. So it is my favorite dish to make, and I made a huge pot for my family.
And you volunteered, right, Renita?
I volunteered at a mission, did mission work with some homeless people and served for about 4 or 5 hours and came home with my gumbo and my family.
Now, nobody asked me what I cooked for Thanksgiving, but since y'all didn't ask, I'll tell y'all
what did the baby
pecan pie, baked it all. Everybody loves it. So just in case, in case anybody wanted to know what I did, that's what I did for Thanksgiving.
What is pecan?
By way of Mississippi, but pecan pie.
I've heard of pecan and I've heard of pecan.
Right.
Pecan, I mean, that sounds like it's Midwest. I got some pecans out of a can to make a casserole.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, a double-minded woman is unstable in all her ways. You cannot say that like that, ma'am. Like,
So I see we have a question here from Sarah Herring. How would a Black woman prepare herself for a role like this? I'm thinking MVP without serving in a role like that. It's almost like darn if you do and darn if you don't. What y'all think?
yeah. Look, I think in the end, you gotta show up to the context in the time that you're in, and then you just have to be able to pivot. And part of what Kamala's got to do now is dance with the folks who brought her, right? Black women said, we're gonna bring you to this spot. You're the one, we pick you, we getting behind you. We don't care about Biden, we pick you. And so now she's got to figure out how to honor that for the plan she has going forward. And she cannot let all of the past stuff. Because look, in the end, we're gonna judge about what she does for us now that she has this power, not by all of that other stuff. And if she makes this count, what I know about Black folks is we are some of the roughest folks. We're tough critics, but we're also very forgiving.
Very forgiving.
I think it's much like that womanist principle of redemptive self-love. You have to work what your mama gave you. You don't allow somebody to put you on a tightrope. You will be judged. You will be damned by those who hate you, and you will be supported by those who love you. But you only can do what you can do. What brought Kamala Harris or Madam VP to this moment is because she took to what her mother said. She understood the precarity of her situation, and she did the best with what she has. She's affirmed those people who brought her. She understands that Biden went for her because she had already been vetted as a presidential candidate. She knew his son. She knew what he thought of her, and she knew what the public needed in the way of a Black woman. She has excelled by being herself in all of that precarity, and she could continue doing so and responding with people with very clear, with Converse on, blazer on, with your hair done or a wig to crown your glory in order to gird your loins to take care of business. And she's doing that. You know, she is not afraid of the heat. And that's a message to all of us. I know Sarah Herring to be a fabulous entrepreneur. An entrepreneur wakes up every day saying, I have goods to sell and I'm going to sell them. And however I need to sell them so I can feed my family, however I need to sell them so I can move this in inventory, she's going to take care of business. That's what Black women have had to do when we've had more than money in order to make a dollar holla or create a way out of no way. That is why people voted on her. That's what she's going to have to do. And she can do nothing else besides be fully human in who she is and understanding that she's not going to be able to win everybody over, but that she is the vice president.
And and I need her to not. I need Black folks to stop trying to make politicians be Jesus. Like I just really need. Like they are politicians. They are part of the system. Revolutionaries don't run to lead empires, right? That's not the nature of what that job is. That doesn't mean we can't hold her accountable. That doesn't mean she is not accountable to a moral compass. But it also means I'm tired of the narrative that Black women are going to save everybody, right? Jesus died once for all. And I'm tired of people nailing Black women to the cross, right? I'm tired of them doing it on our jobs. I'm tired of us doing it in politics. We have unreasonable expectations of what we look. And this is the thing I can say for Barack Obama. We did that to that man. We gave him a failing system and then got mad when he couldn't, make America quote unquote great again, right? And and now we're doing it to her. We've hung all of our hopes and dreams on her. And here's the thing, and so much of the woke conversation about her was already that she was a failure, right? Already that she didn't meet our standards. And so she ain't gonna even get the level of grace that Barack got, both because she's second and also because she's a woman. And so while I'm farther to the left than Kamala, she wasn't the person that I chose in the primaries, but I'm quite proud of her making it over the hump. But what I am an advocate for is for her having the shot to actually show up and do the job. That's it. And I want people to treat her fairly. Yeah. And I would look, and here is my ethical stance about Black women. I don't have to like you to ride for you when you write and when you're riding for the people. right?
Mm.
I might not want to drink with you or shop with you or go on a girlfriend's weekend with you. But if you are here to do the work of our people, then I got your back and nobody better come for you. And I think that has to be our stance on Kamala, that we have to defend her against racist and sexist attacks. And I also think, though, too, that we have to be able to say, but girl, we put you in office now. You work for us. Don't go, it's like people used to tell me when I was a kid in going off to college, up in the big city of Washington, D.C. from my small town. And, all of my church elders just used to say, baby, do not go to college and forget the Jesus that we taught you about. You will hear a lot of stuff, but do not forget the things we taught you.
Right.
He has to have that same sensibility, which is, yes, you on the big stage, but them people didn't bring you, and they ain't the people that's going to keep you there. We are. So you've got to show up for us. We deserve that, right? And I hope she will.
And I think we also have to say that she is a VP now. I mean, usually VPs usually slide into the background. I mean, so she's not the president. We're hoping that she is a very effective VP, and we are hoping that she even creates new roles for herself. But she is the vice president, and that structurally, there's only so much she's going to be able to do in front of the camera. That is, as the vice president, we're hoping that behind the scenes, she's working her work. But in front of the camera, there's only one person who's going to be in front of that camera, and that's going to be Biden. And so I think in terms of reasonable expectations, I'm just saying, just in terms of reasonable expectations, we didn't hear from Biden those 8 years. I mean, we rarely saw Biden. So, I mean, I think we have to kind of modulate and just kind of be realistic about those. Melon, I know you're trying to get another question in. If you are, you were trying to.
Yes, I saw Attorney Blanche Cook's question asking, can we write a new Combahee River collective on the mammy trope? Can we just burn that ish down?
Somebody needs to. Even Viola Davis regrets having been in the help. So somebody needs to get rid of that trope. And we Patricia Bell's. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that there was a reference to the Queen's Gambit in that question, though.
Right.
Right. And so I haven't finished watching. I've watched the first 3 episodes or the first 2, something like that, of that show. And I really like it. Here's the thing I want to say, though. On the one hand, in Hollywood, we do have an issue with them making Black women being the sidekicks, and that needs to change. Black women doing the emotional labor of taking care of institutions, that needs to change. At the same time, sometimes we're too quick to overlay those old tropes onto, this is a new era in Hollywood, right? We actually are seeing representations of Black women that are complex and complicated. And I think that we have to be quick. Anytime a sister is running stuff, that don't mean she's the mammy, right? You want to look at some other things. Does she have a personal life? Does she have homegirls, right? Does she actually have the power to control what goes on? And so we can't use old cultural analysis to totally speak to this new moment. And I'm saying that in part because you actually do have lots of Black women or more Black women showrunners, directors, writers, creators, in a way that we didn't see in the 90s when Patricia Hill Collins and what's his name were writing about mammies and coons and bucks and all of that stuff. We actually have moved, and the pop culture scholar in me just needs us to resist our desire to read Black women according to those controlling images, right? And so I like the Queen's Gambit. I'm interested to see what they do with Jolene's character in it. And also remembering too, that Combahee wasn't about cultural representation. Combahee was about how we gonna change the structural condition that Black women find themselves in, and that's about economic restoration and reparation, and that's about having some real political power, and probably also about taking care of Black women's health care, making sure that stress don't continue to kill us.
So listen, we've been hot off the press. We've been hot out the kitchen, and we got a little bit of hot oil treatment. We are so grateful and so thankful that none other than Professor Crump met us right in the Womanist Salon. And more than that, we are so happy and grateful for all of you who have followed us on this pilot season, who've been tuning in, following us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Spotify and Apple, and jumping into the Womanist Salon whenever you can. We do this work because we love Black women and because we believe in spaces that are for our growth, development, success, and our thriving. So, Dr. Floyd Thomas, Dr. Weems, how do you want to close us out tonight?
Listen, in the Black church, baby, I mean, the one who preaches, the one who does the benediction. So, so I mean,
Listen,
that's how we do it now. So, Dr. Cronk, tell us what are you reading these days, and what are you writing about, and so you. And what do you want to push? I mean, what's on your what you want to leave us? We want to give you. I mean, I think, Stacey, will you agree that that's how we want to close? We want we want to hear what you're telling us prophetically. What do you want to watch out for and keep our eye on?
Mm-hmm. Mel and I are Baptists, so I definitely want the blessing. But after the blessing, I wouldn't mind taking up a little offering. So, but let's have.
Girl, we mix these metaphors. We mix the salon with the church, and the kitchen. Girl, we all over the place.
Look, that's what the salon is about. That's why you can get blessed and pressed at the same time.
No, you're right about it.
Some closing food for thought would be wonderful as we think about all of these issues, how to deal with structural systems, how to deal with friendships, how to deal with recreating the narrative and making it reality. So it really addresses those problems that are death dealing and offsetting all at the same time.
Yeah. Look, my pragmatic thing is all eyes on Georgia. We've got to deliver a Congress to Biden he can work with so that all this will not be for naught. And I tell people my motivation for that is if we can just do it, then we get to watch Kamala overrule Mitch McConnell on every vote. This is motivation, right? Mm-hmm. And so that is my hope for that. What am I writing about? I have new books coming. I've got a children's book coming. I've got a young adult book coming that I co-authored with some of my Crunk feminist sisterin. So those will both be out next year. And I'm working on a new book on love. The title's up in the air, but it's called How to Love a Feminist tentatively. And it's a book of essays trying to think about what does it mean for us to love each other? What does it mean for us to love ourselves? What does it mean for us to think about that structurally and personally? And I guess the thing, this is one of my favorite seasons of the year because it's Advent season. And what I, just want us to remember, it's, in the church, we are so focused. We are Easter people, right? More often than we are Christmas people, in the sense that we be rushing Jesus to the cross. And I love in this moment that we are reminded to focus on Jesus's life. And I think that takes on special meaning at this point in the year, because it's been a struggle for us to live this year. All of us, literally all of us have been in a battle to survive, just to make it. And so for us, so with death all around us and nipping at our heels and following us in the grocery store and following us at the family gathering and, and consuming our context, it feels incredibly important for us to remember we have watched a man with a knee on his neck. We have heard of a sister being, killed in her house by the cops. We've had a heavy year to sit in this moment and to think about what it means to be thankful for life, what it means to be thankful for the example of Jesus's life. My hope, my meditation is about, I don't know that there's any redemption for empire, but I am not a hopeless person. I believe that it is our duty as people of faith to hope. One of the things I've been yelling at the kids who are in my feminist theory graduate seminar, I tell them all the time, I say, y'all want people to get on board with your left woke politics, but all you do is kill everybody's joy and tell them all the things that are wrong. You want people to build a world they've never seen, and you think that they can do that without any notion of faith. And all that you're asking people to believe in requires them to be able to anticipate and build towards a world that they've never seen. And the only people that I know who are specialists in knowing how to do that are church people. That's why I'm a church girl. And so I would just say, in this moment where we don't understand what God is doing or how, the thing that we have at our disposal that other revolutions don't have at theirs is that we engage the practice of faith as a daily discipline in living. We come from people who always believe that another world is possible beyond what they can see. That's what our grandmamas instilled in us, and our mamas, and our pastors, and our deacons and deaconess. And that is the thing that is going to get us beyond this pandemic. It's going to get Biden, into a world where he can actually do things for us. It is our ability to stand on faith. And so that's what I hope for people. Keep your faith, keep your joy. That is my wish. But also remembering that faith is a political act of discipline. It is not apolitical. It is moral, but it is also political. And you don't get the new stuff unless you are willing to be foolish enough to believe in some things. And so I'm foolish enough to be a believer that we can do better than this.
Amen. Amen. Welcome to the pulpit. Welcome to the pulpit.
Thank you for believing in us. And we thank you for being our first visitor to the salon, that we could celebrate for the way in which your work continues to scratch out our head, continues to anoint us with oil, with the way in which you showed sisterhood from a distance. To read your work is to feel like you are in the company of a sister. And so we thank you for that. And we hope that all of you, our audience, see this work as work that is prophetic, as work that is popular, as work that is practical and pragmatic for what it means for you to be a Black woman or to be an ally of Black women. And so this salon, this metaphor, this meta narrative is about what matters to us, right? We have left pulpits and we have left podiums to use the popular, practical platform of podcasts to show that Black women's concerns matter. And we are not doing this for gain, and we're definitely not doing this for popularity. We're doing this as a political act of faith. And if you're interested in this, if you want to prepare with us in the season of Advent for what we're unprepared for, you want to be a faithful ally in this initiative, we ask that not only do you come for appointments, that you might want to be a shareholder. We have information at the Womanist Salon that we will be posting on all of our social media. If you are interested in being a sister who will act as one of our stylists and participate in our subscription program, if you are a corporation or a company who wants to be a village person and invest in us, we are willing to be the evidence of things unseen and the substance of the things that you hope for Black women, that this will be a place, if only for a moment, if only for an hour, if only for a season, that you know that you have at least 3 women who are just a sister away, no matter what your heart feels or what your head condition is, who are invested in your beauty and more interested in what's happening inside of your head as we are even affixing your own crown of glory. Be blessed this Advent season. Know that blessed are you among women, because in you is a new thing that is not only going to help you, but I believe is going to save our people and this world. Advent blessings in the season of gratitude and great expectations.
We real Baptist, so it's a couple closes, but thank you for tuning in to the Womanist Podcast Salon Live. When it comes to Black women's hair, we're head and shoulders above the rest. So reserve your seat and tune in to Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, and all of your favorite platforms. The Womanist Salon is on social media, so we can talk hair and turn heads at the same time. Stay tuned for new appointments in 2021. I think that's a wrap. See y'all later.
Thank you, Dr. Brittany. Thank you so much.
This is wonderful. So
You're
good.
always fabulous. Thank you
was
so much.
I appreciate
It was
you.
really good. It was really good.
I appreciate
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
It was fun.